Welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast. My name is Ian Ray, your host. Today I have Rachel Ridgeway, based out of Denver, Colorado. She is the founder and creator of Aira Basics. Rachel, welcome to the Stretch to Go podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Rachel, tell us why you started creating a sock company, not just any kind of sock, but why Toebox Socks? What was your story behind it?
Yeah. So I would say I got into barefoot shoes probably about 4 years ago. I have two little kids, and it was somewhere between after I had my daughter, who's almost 5, and then before I had my 2-year-old son. And that's important because of how I felt basically during pregnancy with both kids, coming from like a non-barefoot shoe to a barefoot shoe. So after I had my daughter, uh, I connected with a ton of different foot health professionals. I'm a personal trainer by trade. And so I connected with tons of different accounts, PTs, and just foot health experts in general, and became interested in the idea of barefoot shoes. So I bought my first pair of Vivos. This was probably, like I said, about 4 years ago. And I was mostly just wearing them in the gym because I wanted to see if it helped how I felt in my workouts. I was experiencing quite a bit of like lower back pain, and I had some difficulties with my delivery with my daughter. So just kind of the recovery process was hard for me. And so I noticed pretty quickly that I just felt a huge difference in my workouts. And then I found myself just reaching for my shoes, my barefoot shoes on family walks and just like running errands and different things. So before you knew it, I was wearing them, 90% of the time. And I just started noticing different small things at first where it was like my foot shape changed a little bit. Like my splay got a little wider, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then ironically, I got pregnant with my son, and I kept wearing barefoot shoes kind of throughout that pregnancy. And towards the end, I noticed I had little to none when it came to like foot swelling, and my back like felt night and day different compared to my first pregnancy where I was wearing like super heavily cushioned shoes. So I became a believer really during that period because I obviously noticed, certain things, but it wasn't until that pregnancy that I was like, wow, these are really changing how I feel in my own body. So I became a firm believer. And then I started buying tons of different shoes and replacing a bunch of different things I had in my house. But it was kind of around that time I realized socks can be just as bad as the shoes themselves. And a lot of times you're in your socks longer than you're in your shoes, especially if you're someone like myself who works from home.
Yeah.
And so I was wearing my socks all day, and I started noticing it becomes hard to unnotice once you notice it. But like most traditional socks have a really tight elastic band in the toe area itself that tends to compress your toes together. I know that's why a lot of people then kind of reach for toe socks. For me specifically, I never could get over the texture of the feeling between having something between my toes. I also like to joke I was a child of the 90s, and toe socks had a big moment back in the 90s. And I like vividly remember being at a sleepover, and I had my like rainbow toe socks on, and everyone was wearing them, and I couldn't stand the feeling. And so I would pull my toes out and just sit in like the base of the foot because I couldn't stand it. Drove me nuts. I don't know why. It's just a texture thing for me. But then kind of as I started pursuing down this path, I found that I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of people that it does bother that having that fabric between the toes, and some people just don't like the aesthetic of it. So it was funny because when I brought the socks to the expo, I was nervous because I thought everyone was going to just rip me apart for them not being toe
So
socks.
socks.
But it was actually really, yeah, but I felt like the idea was actually really welcomed because people were like, no, there needs to be an alternative if you're not someone who loves this and you just want something that's like a better option for your feet. So as I, kind of ruled toe socks out for myself, I was trying to find just foot shaped socks that were maybe, just more comfortable, less restrictive, didn't have quite the same kind of tight elastic in the toe. And there are a lot of brands that make barefoot shoes that do make socks like this, but not many of them. Actually, none of them are based in the United States. And so importing, socks felt a little insane to me. The other thing was that they didn't have socks for infants through adults. And so I have two little kids, and I wanted to make sure that I was taking care of their feet too. And it was really hard to find good socks for my kids. So I think it really that was the push that made me want to start the brand, was strictly from a mom standpoint of like, where's the good option for my kids? And there are some brands that do make kid socks as well, but a lot of the colors are really bright and in your face. And I'm a neutrals gal myself. So I was like, where are the white and black, just like standard neutral colors? There weren't any. So I decided, I was like, I'm going to make this because I feel like it's a big gap in the market, and try to just take a stab at it the best I can and see what happens. And so that's how Aira was born.
So the name Aira Basics,
Yeah.
why did you choose that?
So naming a brand is like just as hard as naming a child. I swear. I've named two kids, and I will tell you that I like grappled with this for months, but then finally had to pinpoint something. And so the name Era just came from like a new era of lightweight socks. And just rethinking socks. And so I wanted them to be very light on the feet. I didn't want them to feel super heavy. I wanted them to be very thin so you could still feel the floor. I wanted it to resemble the feeling of being barefoot. So Era just kind of came to me one day, and I liked the flow of it, and I liked that it was a symmetrical logo. And I just thought, I was like, okay, I could do some things with this and make it look like a cool brand. So the name just, I don't know, just stuck. And again, it's socks are a basic garment. So I liked adding the word basics to it. So yeah, that's how it was born.
What year was this when you started?
So it's been a little over a year, actually. So not terribly long from like concept to production, but I will tell you, it feels like it's been an eternity because, the development does take a lot of time and a lot of effort. And so to basically be almost a year and a half into a brand and just now be about, to sell it to people for the first time, it feels like a long time. But yeah, I started the process. It was like August of 2024.
Okay.
Yes, 2024.
Okay. Cool.
So I hit my year this last August.
So
Yeah.
basically when you went to Anya's at Barefoot Excels, like you're pretty really
Yes,
new into it.
I was new. I actually, again, everything takes 10 times longer than you think it's going to. So the expo was in May. I had pretty solid samples at that point to show, and we were really close to signing off on the first design. But then I ran into some hiccups that, there was just both political and fabric, and we had all sorts of just, challenges that we had to kind of overcome. And so the process took longer than I thought. We were originally supposed to have inventory by like end of August. And so I have the black crew socks are in now. The white ones are literally like on a plane as we speak. So they should be here by February 6th, which is exciting. And so we'll be launching first with just crew socks, and then the ankle socks will be shortly behind. But when I was presenting in May at the expo, I was under the impression like, oh, these will be here May or August or September. They're very close. And then it took, a good 6 months after that to get them really going. So it's always longer than you think. I'm sure any entrepreneur, especially like a product-based business can attest to. It always takes longer than they say and that you think. But it's exciting to see it finally like this close. Like we're so close.
What's been the hardest part about starting a business from scratch, not knowing anything about flocks?
Yeah, gosh. There's so many things. Again, it's like business 101 in real time. So I think, learning all the things that one you need to have in order to even like approach a factory. Like you've got to have your tech pack, you have to have all the measurements, you have to have the design ready to go. I thought like naming the brand was hard, but then you have to do the logo and the design, and you have to come up with all the sizing, especially for us because it's infant through adult brand. So it's not just coming up with a few adult sizes and being like, okay, we're good to go. I mean, I'm making infant socks with silicone grips. So it's the full span of the foot, and it takes a lot of trial and error, especially when you're making a design that isn't really out there. So what I learned is that the way that the machines are built to make socks, it's not really intuitive, I guess, for a design like this. Like there's a reason that socks are shaped like tubes. It's because it's easier to make something that's symmetrical. So when you try to make something that's more of an anatomical shape, it's pretty challenging. I actually have, so one of the first prototypes, I guess, if you will, was this shape. And so this was actually one of the ones I had I might have had this one on the table at the expo. I can't really remember because it was so long ago now, but you'll see here. So it might be kind of hard to see on the black, but the seam is kind of down here.
Okay.
So it gives this illusion of a nice wide box. And this is how a lot of the socks that already existed were shaped. They were shaped very similarly. So the seam is much lower and it kind of gives the illusion to this like very wide toe box. The issue I had with this design is you'll see it kind of makes for this very harsh line on the outer toes. And so when we were going through the design process, every pair I tried, because I would do the foot outline when I get a new pair of socks, I would try it on into my barefoot outline to make sure that it wasn't causing any restriction on my toes. And these designs always on the fourth toe would shove it in a little bit. And so I could not get over that feeling. It drove me nuts. So then I went back to the drawing board, and this, it's kind of hard to see on the white. It's easier actually to see once you get them in person, but there's a little panel right underneath the seam, and it's easier to see on the white versus the black. But you'll see that the seam line, we actually moved it up, but it makes for a much wider top. And so if you compare that to, I'll just set these on top because these are both smalls. If you compare that to what we originally had designed, you'll see that on the outer toes, you get all this extra space. And so while it gives the illusion of a bigger toe box, it doesn't actually give more room in the toe box. I struggled with this decision because, again, a lot of the socks that are out there now that are kind of phrased as wide toe box socks have this dropped seam. But I kind of forced myself to think a little critically here because, again, there was a reason I didn't like those socks, and that they weren't the perfect fit for at least my foot. And so by moving the seam line up, we were actually able to create more space. I found it to be a much more comfortable fit and still obviously allows for a very stretchy sock. So there's no actual elastic in the toe. It's called auto toe close. So the seam just is sewn together. So it does allow your foot to take its natural shape.
Hmm.
Now, again, I know that the toe sock people are going to come for me and say, it's not going to ever give you that full freedom that a toe sock gives. And that's true. It's like comparing mittens and gloves. They're never going to feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
But my goal was to make this feel as close to that as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job.
And that's while including a thinner material, like you're saying, so you can get that
Yes.
feeling, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So you'll notice a lot of our testers, because I recruited many, many different foot types when we were testing these, just because I wanted to make sure they felt good on as many feet as possible. Obviously, it's just like barefoot shoes, right? It may not be the perfect fit for every single foot.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. But for the vast majority of people, I wanted this to be a solid option. And a lot of the testers that tried them, compared them to almost like a feeling of a dress sock.
Yeah.
It's very, very thin on the foot. It feels very light. So compared to like a traditional gym sock, the first time you put this on, you're going to say like, "Whoa, this feels very, very lightweight." But the goal was to make sure that there wasn't so much fabric that it was like suffocating your feet, because that, again, is most traditional gym socks. They have a lot of fabric. They are very thick, and that's part of the problem. So I wanted to create something that had really adequate stretch and just felt really lightweight on the foot.
Sure. Cause like, I think like, like Nike socks, like your curved socks, like they have that
Yeah.
thicker padding in the heel, the forefoot area.
Yep.
So it feels nice and cushiony in your cushioned shoes. And I think
Yep.
that typically will take away from that, like saying proprioception or to be able to feel the
Yes.
ground, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the other thing that was really important to me in making a very thin sock was to make sure that they lasted. So I actually opted to do third-party durability testing. I don't know if all brands do this. It was something that I thought was very important while we were kind of debating if we wanted to add reinforcements or not to the toe and the heel specifically. But basically, what that process looks like is you pay a company, an outsider company, to take the product. They put the sock on basically like a mannequin foot, and they rub it in a pattern that's essentially a figure eight on a piece of fabric that's like almost like a sandpaper
Okay.
material. And so they rub it in a figure eight, and the max durability that they'll test for fabrics like this is 20,000 cycles. So if you pass through 20,000 cycles of abrasion resistance, it's considered a really high quality, high abrasion resistant fabric. And we passed every test with all of our socks with no holes or sign of wear after 20,000 cycles. So to me, that was really important because again, I can't control the foot it's on.
Yeah.
So if you're not, if you're not taking care of your feet and you've got some, you know, big calluses and things, I can't control that. But what I can control is, when you're walking on the surface, obviously that's counting as abrasion to the sock. And a lot of heavy cotton fiber fabrics, especially socks, they tend to wear out pretty quickly, especially in the heel and the toe. And that comes from, again, that abrasion, that constant repetitive walking motion. And so I wanted to create something that was going to last, that you didn't have to replace it so often, because that's one of my biggest complaints with socks. Um, so it was one of those things that for me, I thought it was important to add and to pay for, honestly, just because I wanted to make sure that they were durable.
Have you always been that type of meticulous, that T type of personality? It seems like what I mean, which it should be,
Yes,
if you're paying if you're paying a lot into the brand
money.
and yeah, and of course time, like you want to
Yes,
make sure you're crossing the I's and T's. It's something that
yes.
you're not
I
familiar with, so I understand that.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, I'm not a textiles person. I didn't go to school for this. This is not like, it's something that came, I think, out of a need of a product. And so I'm like teaching myself as I go. And thankfully, the factory I partnered with, they've been incredible. They've been so patient with me. I think on the Black Cruise, I mean, obviously, I showed you this specific design that has changed quite a bit. We tested different fabric blends, we tested different shapes. I actually made a reel on my Instagram page that showed some of the early models and some of the issues that we had. So it's been a journey. It has not been easy to create this like final product that I'm going live with, but they've been so patient with me and just understanding the idea and the concept and just really letting me take my time to make sure it's exactly what I wanted before putting it out to market, which is huge. It's hard to find partners that give you that kind of patience, especially for someone type A like myself.
How hard was it to find? I guess how hard was it to find a factory or a partner
Mm,
to partner with to make this? Like, what was it? Did you have to go to the factory and to with the owners and or to
yeah,
go all through a
it was
prototypes?
hard. It was hard. So you obviously you have to have a tech pack ready to go. So whenever you're creating any product, you can't just like, you have to show up with measurements and everything exactly as the factory would need it to take it and create it. And so the issue we ran into, or I ran into, I guess, was trying to find the right fit for the product type and people who understood the vision of it, I guess. So I did try, we talked to a couple different factories in China, Vietnam. I ended up landing on India. And so it's challenging, especially the landscape of the United States. When I was searching for the factory, was when tariffs were all over the board. And so that played a heavy role in what I ended up going with because at that point, China, I think it was like 145% tariff. And so as a new brand, I was very scared to select a factory and have it be so unknown, especially for something like socks. Because I will tell you, even with going with India, my shipping and my delivery costs cost me more than making the product themselves. So it's it's pretty wild. So you do have to really consider what that all-in cost is going to be, what your landed cost is going to be. And so in talking to some of the factories, there were some really wonderful factories that could have probably made a really high quality, amazing sock. But when you factor in all the different costs and taxes and stuff, it skewed me more towards the factory I ended up working with in India. But then you land on a region, and then we spoke with gosh, 3 or 4 different factories in India, and then they have to have the right equipment to create the product that I'm trying to create because the machines are different, their capabilities are different. And so what I required and the needle count I wanted, it kind of narrowed the process down for me, if you will. There was a wonderful factory that I worked with. They were smaller, but their minimums were a lot higher. They made a really beautiful sock. It was amazing quality, but the problem was they didn't have the technology to make the anatomical shape. So they could create a really stretchy tube sock, but they couldn't make the foot shape that I wanted. And so even though they were wonderful and I loved the team, I just was like, this isn't the vision I have for the brand, and it just didn't work long term. So then I ended up selecting this factory that we're working with now, and they work with some really high reputable brands. I'm not going to say on here obviously, but it was helpful in the decision because at that scale, they're able to produce a really high quality, consistent product. And I think that's really important when you're selecting a factory because you want to make sure that, we're making 2,000 pairs a SKU, and you got to make sure that it's consistent, good quality, reliable output, which is tricky when you're doing this for the first time.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot, the many brands I'm interviewing and talking to, like India has
Yeah.
very great quality barefoot shoes that they have
Yes.
come out of, and they're, the
Yes.
craftsmanship, the artisan. So it's something I'm learning through you guys, through my
Yeah.
guests, is like, where all the products are being made and the process of going through it. So like I
Yeah.
can't imagine the fact like you have to go to the factory, you're learning about it, you learn the process. And
Yep.
yeah, I mean it does take time. And I think you probably did, land on the perfect one for you right now at this time of the brand.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. And you also have to consider like the growth aspect too. I mean, obviously, you don't know when you're launching a product what consumer demand is going to look like, but like selecting a factory that's able to keep up with output should it increase. That's also a big thing to consider. So it's just there's a lot of factors and access to materials. One thing that's really great about India is all their cotton is local. So it cuts down on some of the transportation fees that are associated because obviously everything packages into the price that it costs me to make the sock. And so when they're purchasing cotton that's local, it's much cheaper than importing that cotton from somewhere else. So just like little things like that that are nice. But I felt a really strong connection with the team at this factory. They're wonderful. Can't say enough good things about them honestly. And it's just been a really great partnership. So I'm just pleased to, have found something because it's trial and error. And I know a lot of brands that will pick a factory and then they end up switching. And it's hard to do once you have production going. And so you really want to try to nail that down in the first go. But people do change because it's a struggle to land on the perfect partnership.
so switching gears, now you're talking about like
Yeah.
toe socks, people who love toe socks, and
Yeah.
whatnot. Because I wear both toe socks, white toe box socks. But
Yeah.
let's kind of talk about the benefits of white toe box socks from regular socks. Because I know we're talking about how like that fourth metatarsal of the toe kind of gets squished.
Yes.
And depending on the shape of it, even some people's shapes of the foot, So
Yeah.
give me your take of the benefits. List some of the benefits that you find that why toe box socks are great for everyone.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I found, and just even comparing to my just conventional socks, is most brands, a cheaper way to make a sock is to put the actual elastic band in the toe. So the auto toe close version is more expensive. So to make a cheaper sock, a lot of brands will have that little bit of elastic in the toe.
Uh-huh.
But think about elastic, you stretch it and it pulls back. So if it's in the toe box of your sock, the natural desire, I guess, of that piece of elastic is to tighten back up to its natural shape.
Yeah.
So it just naturally forces your toes together. And I always like to do this with my own socks now. I don't need to anymore, obviously, because I have an abundance of socks at my house. But when I was, kind of identifying which of my socks kind of needed to go or I didn't want to wear anymore before I created Aira, outlining your foot shape and on a piece of paper and then stepping into it with the socks that you're wearing is a really easy way to see how compressive your sock is. And what I noticed about my own socks is the ones that had a really heavy, thick fabric blend tended to squeeze more than some of my thinner, lighter socks. And again, I didn't have a ton of socks that had no elastic in the toe like this. A lot of them had the elastic, but again, the thinner ones seem to stretch better. So that's, I think, one of the first things that, you kind of want to be aware of. But it's just the same as with barefoot shoes. Anytime your toes are restricted or they're squeezing together, obviously maybe not as much as with shoes, but you're running the risk of running into hammer toes or bunions down the line. And so just being more aware of your toes actually able to spread and move, and to get some of that flexibility, because a lot of socks, they do really heavily restrict movement. And if you're one of those people that the second you get home, you can't wait to take your socks off, that's probably telling you something about what it's doing to your foot. So I think just allowing like the air circulation too. There's a lot of people that complain about things like blisters and just discomfort from wearing socks. But I think for me, the big thing was just the movement restriction, having a fabric that allowed for that full toe splay when you're walking in your barefoot shoes, because it's counterproductive to put a sock on that's going to squeeze everything together while you're in a shoe that allows for the space. So I think that they just go hand in hand. And again, nothing wrong. If you love toe socks, like that's amazing. I think it's a beautiful product. And really, this came out of a need for people like myself, like I said, who just don't like the feeling and you just want something that's better. Or even if you've got little kids, like you're not going to wrangle a 2-year-old into a toe
Toe
sock.
socks. Yeah.
I don't care who you are. If you think you are, you don't have a 2-year-old or you've never had children. I think getting socks on kids in general is challenging. So what's been really cool is to see just the difference in how it affects the shape of my kids' feet. So I think even if you're a toe sock lover, there's space in this brand if you are a parent and you just are trying to find a better option for your kids. I also had someone at the expo that said they love toe socks, but there's days they just don't want to deal with putting them on. And so every once in a while, he's like, I just want to throw a regular sock on and run out the door. I don't want to like deal with getting them on. So he's like, it's not that I'd wear these every day, but there are days where it is nice to just pull something up and be done. And then a lot of spouses. So it was like, I love toe socks, but my wife hates them or my husband
Yeah.
hates them. And so I think it's just finding an option that's better for your foot and gives more of that freedom. If you're not a fan of toe socks or it's just not suitable for someone in your family, I guess is kind of how I would think about these.
No, that is so true. Yeah, I would definitely put these socks on my kids rather than put on toe socks.
Yes,
And I don't know. I don't know of any brand that has kids toe socks. Like, I don't think that's a common thing.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I think you can buy some on Amazon. Like, I think there are some ways to buy them.
Uh-huh.
But again, if you think you're going to wrangle your toddler into toe socks, then God bless you. I have 2 kids and they are feral and they would never allow me to put them on, like even gloves. I'm like, if it's not a mitten, it's not going on. It just, you can't. So kids are challenging. And so obviously if older kids, if they love toe socks, then great. Then there's an option. But if you've got young ones and you're trying to find something that's, not going to squeeze their tiny little feet, then these will be a good option, hopefully for you. So
And then, of course, another thing, like you're talking about, like some spouses, they might not be on the same thought process as far as like foot health and whatnot.
yeah,
So like this is a gentler way for helping them transition unknowingly, obviously,
yes, yes,
and then
yes,
this kind of gives them, like you said, the benefits of barefoot shoes without making it inconspicuous. Like, oh, here,
yes,
wear some toe socks. No, here's some sock that's going to give you those
yes,
benefits that you are trying to promote, and that's such a beautiful thing because it's accessible,
yes.
it's easy, and it's not going to create that barrier for people to get into
Break the
saying,
bank.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I always say it's a lower barrier to entry because a sock is much more approachable than a shoe for most people, especially these because, I don't want them to be astronomically overpriced like a lot of socks are. So, I want them to be affordable. I want them to be accessible. I want them to be something that can replace your just everyday run of the mill gym sock or just the sock that you're wearing underneath your sneakers every day. That was kind of my vision with this first collection, at least, just kind of your everyday basic cotton sock. So that was kind of the vision behind this specific collection and just trying to hit like the everyday essential that most people are wearing, which now every time I'm at the gym, I'm like stalking people like, what socks are you wearing? What's the height? What color? It's like I find myself just like staring at everybody's socks now because I'm like, what are you wearing? What's the demand for a next collection? So it's comical. Actually, I never thought I'd be a sock maker, but here we are.
you're an entrepreneur, so you have to be thinking like, okay, what's the market? What's
Yes.
so it makes sense.
Yep. 100%.
As far as like the creating awareness and exposure to the brand,
Yeah.
what are you trying to do for this upcoming year? Now that the socks are going to be released, what are you trying to do to create some awareness and exposure and just really educating clients about Aira socks?
Yeah, it's hard because I don't know that everyone understands it fully yet. I think a lot of people, even in my own personal life, have been like, but isn't it just a sock? Like, does it really matter? So I think honestly, the first group of people that will truly understand the benefits are people who are already, subscribed to the barefoot shoe world because you've already seen the benefits, you've already felt the benefits. So I think primarily that will be my first focus is just getting it out there to people who already love the barefoot world and just maybe are looking for this and haven't found a good fit yet. I think tackling the broader everyday average Joe who doesn't know anything about barefoot shoes is a harder hill to climb. I've started in just even in my own immediate circle trying to educate, but people that don't get it don't get it. And so that's a bigger challenge I think for me. It's just kind of trying to educate on the importance of why you should even be thinking about your feet and why, traditional socks and shoes fall flat, like why you need to actually be thinking about what you're putting on your feet, 'cause it affects the entire kinetic chain. So I think my biggest hurdle as a brand is education and trying to just put it out there and get people to understand why they should care in the first place. Because the other hard part with socks is they're everywhere. Everyone makes socks. And so you can go to Walmart or Target and pick up a 12 pack for $7. And I'm never going to be able to compete with that as a small brand. So it's really the education piece about, what you should be looking for in your socks and why you should care. That's going to be my biggest, I think, battle as a brand and what I'm going to try to keep promoting on my page, my socials and things on my website. Partnering with people like you who actually care in this world and about foot health and just different influencers in the space who care and want to promote, the brand itself. I think that's probably the biggest way I'll get the word out initially. And then, yeah, we'll see. I think, like I said, the broader group of people who are not in this world, that's going to be the biggest challenge is getting buy-in, I think, as to why it's something they should even care about or think about.
And then last question, where do you see,
Yeah.
what's your goals for Aira Basics in the next 5, 10 years?
It's so funny. I don't have a set vision, I would say, of where this goes because I'm just kind of taking it as it comes, to be honest with you. I do see expansion. I see expansion into different shape or not shapes, but lengths. So, like the first launch will be crew socks. Then we're doing an ankle sock after that. Those are in production right now. I see a quarter crew in the future, probably white and black. So different styles of sock for sure, different colors potentially. I've even kind of batted around the idea of different fabric blends because I know obviously everyone loves a merino wool blend. So,
Yeah.
talking about that potentially down the line too as a potential option. So I think just expanding, I think as a brand, I want to be aware of what my consumers want. Like, what do you want to see from me? Because that will dictate kind of the direction I go as a so if there's certain things you're dying to see in a sock, that's what I'm kind of using. I'm using feedback from my audience to see what do you want to see next? What would you consume next? Like what's missing out there that I could help kind of fill the gap for. So that's really it. Like I don't really have a goal to expand to other types of garments or anything like that. I really want to hone in on the sock
Yeah.
because I do think it's something that's neglected. Like I said, a lot of brands that are doing this are just creating maybe one or two options. They're not creating like a full suite of socks. And so I want to have options for people because I know there's people that love color. There's people like myself who love neutral. I just giving a good variety of options, I think would be my goal and just hopefully growing in a sustainable way. And honestly, it just, you don't know how they'll do until they launch. So I'm just hoping that people love these initially and that they do well. Otherwise, I have socks for the rest of my life because I'm like, we're drowning in socks in this house. I have socks everywhere. Every cabinet, every storage
Right behind
container
you.
in my house is like, yes, literally all these cabinets are full. I've got a unit next to me that has like all the socks that I'll do for pick and pack for orders once we launch. I have a warehouse space that has overflow because I can't store all the socks and I don't even have all of them yet. Yeah, we're drowning in socks in this house. So if they don't sell well, I will just wear all my socks forever. And every family member can expect socks for gifts for eternity if they don't sell. Just kidding. I'm sure they'll do fine.
Well, Rachel,
We'll see.
um, I'd love for the audience to learn more about where they can pick up a pair of Aira Basics and, of course, ways to interact with
Yes.
you, learn more about what you're doing
Yeah,
and the benefits. So if you want to share with the audience, email, website,
sure.
social, and then any ways that they can reach out and to interact.
Yeah, so I am a one-man show over here. I do everything. You can find us on Instagram is probably where we're most active. I do have a TikTok, but millennial, I'm just not great with the TikTok yet.
Yeah.
So I do have one, but I would say Instagram is kind of my forte. So at Aira Basics is our Instagram,
Mhm.
and I'm the one who does all the messaging, all the posting. So if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me there. Email is info@airabasics.com, so you can reach out that way as well. Our website is airabasics.com, so pretty straightforward there. It is not open yet, so if you go to the website, you'll see it's the first to know main screen where you can type in your email if you're interested in getting alerted once we actually go live, which I haven't announced officially yet, but I will share with you because we are so close. So I think, as pending everything goes well, February 9th will be the official launch day. So that's really exciting. We're only a couple weeks away finally. The only reason I haven't announced it officially yet is because they're supposed to land in Denver at the warehouse near February 6th, but it's the transportation from where they drop them off in Denver to my actual space can sometimes take a couple days. So I'm just waiting until I know for sure.
Yeah.
But February 9th is the tentative official launch, which is super exciting. Finally, been forever.
Well, hey, I am looking forward to it. Like I said, I've already wearing my first pair. They do have that like texture, kind of reminds me, like say, like dress socks. So definitely, I would say
Yes.
I would love to see something where you could have some grips in the bottom. That'll be like the next thing, something towards the future, because that would be
Yeah, I
cool.
would love to do some grips.
But I think
Absolutely.
definitely, please go check out Air Basics. Of course, interact with Rachel and by your parents. So thanks, Rachel, for hopping on to the podcast.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
No problem.